This meeting has been posted and announced in accordance with Chapter 231 PL 1975. Mr. Jacobus, please call the roll.
Mr. Kubler.
Here.
Mrs. Torres.
Present.
Mr. Zangari.
Present.
For the record, Mr. Frieda is absent.
Mr. Frieda is excused.
Excused. Mrs. Lombardi.
Here.
Mr. Rivera.
Here. We have no SGO rep tonight. Items to be presented by administration. Mr. Jacobus, do you have anything to be presented tonight?
No, just the agenda as posted at the meeting.
Mr. Egan? Items, remarks, and committee reports to be presented by board members. Mr. Kubler? Thank you. Mrs. Torres?
Not at this time. We'll be present to follow.
The rail. That's a new rail. It was never there before.
Thank you, Ms. Torres. Mr. Zangari?
The only thing I have this evening, Mr. President, is going through some of my notes from years past. I found a list of non-mandated cuts that we were looking at. I came across a list of non-mandated cuts during the time when the Christie administration had first cut, I think $6.7 million out of our budget. I've made a couple copies for you. I would like to pass them to you. I'd like to call a budget committee meeting and look at some of these items. None of them include instructional personnel. In fact, I think it may help us get more instructional personnel back in the classroom. And if you need me to be a part of that meeting, I'd be more than happy to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Zangari. Mr. Jacobus, could you look at what Mr. Zangari has presented here and put together a budget meeting as quickly as possible? So
If we could have figures next time as well, because I know they've changed since 2012.
Mrs. Lombardi?
Nothing tonight.
For those of you who don't know, Mrs. Feldman's husband was pulled in for emergency surgery. It was a very severe condition, and I'd like to just have everyone remember her and her family in their prayers. Remarks by citizens? We have a motion to open for public comment.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Remarks regarding agenda items and issues that are relevant to the educational system. A participant must sign in and be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface comments by announcement of his or her name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. The individual called shall proceed with a maximum of 5 minutes. All statements shall be directed to the president of the Board of Education. No participant may address board members individually. Ava Oxley?
It's a little nerve. She can do this. We have confidence. We bring this down to her. Okay, go ahead. Say your name.
My name is Ava Hartzell. I was wondering if bike racks can bike racks be placed at schools? Can be placed at all the schools? This will let kids ride their bikes to school for exercise. they will be allowed to have a place to park their bikes. It will give them energy and it will promote good health. I hope you will take this into consideration. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Mama to repeat it so that we make sure that everybody hears it, okay? Thank you so much.
Can bike racks be placed at all the schools? This will let kids ride their bikes to school for exercise. They will be able to have a place to park their bikes. It will give them energy and it will promote good health. I hope you will take this into consideration. Thank you for listening.
I think that's a wonderful idea, Ava. Thank you so much. Luke Lancy, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate.
Luke Belanthi, 11 Belleville. For most of this year, 2014, there's been a lot of stuff going on about Mr. Mignon. And the outcome of the decision this past week or whatever, I think everyone on this board individually owes him an apology for what went on. And I think that this board collectively owes the town of Belleville an apology for what was going on in the state of New Jersey. I know teachers from all over this state who received letters about coming to the Board of Education meetings to support the Belleville BEA. It just polarized what this town is and what we're doing up here. You've got to get on the right foot, and hopefully, this also goes for the past members who aren't here. This railing is ridiculous, by the way. You can't even see but when this new administration comes in, assuming there's going to be a new administration, I hope that makes some changes in the attitude of this board, how it handles its business, how it runs its business, and how it takes care of its citizens as well as its students on this. And the other thing, please, whoever's coming, get rid of this sign-in sheet, please. That's ridiculous. This is supposed to be a free, open meeting for discussion. Instead of the sign-in, we're not allowed. If something goes on during the course of the meeting that you might have a question about, you can't raise it. So please get rid of that, whoever gets in. All right, thank you.
Tom McCowan, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Tom McCrone, Continental Avenue, Belleville. To follow up on what Lou was saying, I know of other boards of education that break twice for questions. The first time on resolutions only, and then the second time on something that may come up during the course of the meeting, that at the beginning of the meeting, the parents or the audience didn't know they want to ask a question. So they'll do it one side, resolution items only, and the second time, anything you want to talk about. So many questions, so little time. I will ask my questions without waiting for answers. I don't want to run over. If someone has an answer and they would like to interrupt me and answer my question, that would be fine. Otherwise, you can answer my questions when I finish. I will furnish you with a list of my questions at the end of my statement. First, under personnel, you state that a list of rehired personnel will be attached to the minutes. Will be attached to the minutes appears in a lot of the agendas that come out. When the minutes come out, it still reads, will be attached to the minutes. We never get to see the things that the board sees that are supposedly attached to the minutes. So we will never see the names of the teachers that have been rehired. Some of the parents were very concerned at the last couple of meetings because they wanted to know whether or not the teacher they thought they were going to get for second grade or third grade would still be there. If they had this list, they would know. Now they don't. This is August, they still don't know, and if they were attached to the minutes, they won't know until September after the next meeting. I would assume any rehired personnel will have to sign a contract. I thought anybody that was offered a contract, there had to be an agenda item that stated the step they were being hired on, and the amount they were being hired at, and so on. We don't see that in this agenda. We're never going to see it. Another question. What's the difference between Director of Special Education and Supervisor of Special Education? We appointed one last month, the other one is being appointed tonight. If money is so tight, do we need both a supervisor and a director? For me, the title stand up when we change it. Obviously, there's a difference. Why does the board secretary no longer list the date of the next meeting on the agendas? I have no idea when the September meeting is. I know you have a calendar, but it was always handy at the end of the meeting to see, all right, the next meeting is on the 11th or whatever the date is. We don't see that. I haven't seen it for the last couple of months. I'm also confused, and that doesn't take much these days. We ended the 2014 school year $5 million in debt. This is now the 2015 school year. Are we just overlooking? I know we can't. What happens to the money that we were indebted to or for in 2014? Does that money come out of the 2015 budget? Where is the money going to come from? What accounts are being cut? I know that we didn't rehire all of our teachers, but that doesn't save us $5 million. So what accounts are going to be affected if we have to fill that void of the $5 million? I realize Mr. Egan's role is to make 2015 different from 2014, but from where can he cut spending? Yes, we did not hire back the teachers, as I said, but that's not going to save us the money. So where does Mr. Egan look to try to find any of that $5 million to try to make up the whole deficit? Can somebody promise us that in 2015 we will not have students sitting on the floor in classrooms? And can you promise us that they will have textbooks and the supplies that they need? We heard that computers were ordered last year for the state testing. He told me 60, I believe, for high school and middle school, and 30 for traditional school. Can somebody guarantee that those computers are here in the district? Mr. Jacobus said that the technology committee was inventorying what we had. I don't think he realizes it, but we heard the same thing from Mr. Frieda sometime last year. We couldn't do anything until we took an inventory. So he was going to, as chairman of the technology committee, he was going to take an inventory so we knew what we had and we could move from there. I don't know what happened to that inventory. If we're looking for funds to purchase computers, each month we have a flea market. I know that the flea market pays approximately $1,000 a month to use our grants. Up until 4 or 5 years ago, the money raised by the flea market was used by different clubs. 4 or 5 years ago, it was decided by the board that that money would go directly to the athletic committee. I'm sure there's nothing in stone that says the athletic committee has to get that check every month. Can't you take that check each month, put it towards the computers? By the end of the year, we could probably buy about 30 computers or 10 computers, whatever the number is, without anything coming out of our budget. So perhaps somebody can look at the income from the flea markets and see if it can't be redirected with technology.
Mr. McCollum, ask you to wrap it up, please.
Okay. I do have questions, and if Mrs. Conlon, you can pass it on to you. If you'd like to answer my questions now, I would appreciate it. Mrs. Conlon doesn't seem to be mine, so she takes the direction well. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, can I just comment on a few things that I talked about?
Absolutely.
Mr. Jacobus, if the minutes can be attached, and the second is the posting on the website. If the Board of Education members receive their packets on a Thursday or Friday, let's not wait until the day of the meeting to post that on the website. The other thing you spoke about, Mr. McCrone, I agree with you wholeheartedly. 819, this position was created last year. We We had a director, they created a supervisor, and at the time we were told by having a supervisor there, it was going to save the special education department $500,000. Well, in turn, it was overspent by over $1 million, almost $2 million. So I agree with you on that. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Zangari. Cindy Seeker, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate.
Cindy Seeker, 9 Harvard Place. Thank you, Mr. Rivera, Mrs. Lombardi, board members, and administrators. My name is Cindy Seeker. I'm a parent of a recent graduate and also a current Belleville High School student. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I am here in support of Mr. John Spina, a Belleville High School teacher and coach. Mr. Spina is a dedicated teacher whom the students and his peers love and respect. He is stern but fair and encourages his students to learn each and every day in his classroom. He strives to instill the best in each of his students to help them succeed in life. As a coach, Mr. Spina is loved and respected not only by his athletes, but also by his team's parents. Again, he coaches with a stern but fair hand to have each of his players reach their best possible potential. He not only learns each player's volleyball skills, but he goes above and beyond to learn, support, and acknowledge his players' educational accomplishments. He has brought great changes to both the boys and girls volleyball teams in the 3 short years he has been with them. The girls went from not winning a single game the year prior to him starting to undefeated division champions this past fall. The boys team has been in the county finals the past 2 seasons with him serving as head coach. It is truly amazing that one person can turn around 2 different teams in such a short period of time. Mr. Spina has also developed a strong work ethic in his players that this upcoming September, he has 3 girls from the class of 2014 playing college volleyball. That alone is a major accomplishment for any coach, never mind from a program that has only recently been on the winning side of the scoreboard. I understand the concern about raising taxes to support our schools. Believe me, I see my tax bills every quarter, and I certainly do not smile when I get them. I also understand the Board of Education budget is very tight, and much consideration has to go into each rehire, but Mr. Spina is one of the few deserving his position back this fall, not just for his sports accolades, but most importantly, teaching our children to be strong, respectable, conscientious adults after graduation. He is the idealistic teacher we all want our children to experience in each classroom every day. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Anthony Savella, 40 Crescent Terrace. I'm here because I'm the type of guy that when something's not right, drives me crazy. And what's been driving me crazy is that my wife was riffed as a secretary this year. And I just want to go back to Meet the Monitor meeting with Mr. Egan, where he stated that he would determine rehires by speaking with their administrators and reviewing their personal files. There is no way that Mr. Egan looked at my wife's file and decided to riff her. No way. This is one of the best secretaries this district has ever had. I will just read you one letter of recommendation from Carmine Junta, the principal, who she served the first year. Mrs. Susan Savella is a 2-year secretary in the Belleville Public Schools. However, due to the district's budgetary restructuring, she is presently unemployed, but it is strongly noted that this is not due to an inefficient skill set. In fact, it is Sue's skill set that allowed her to arrive at school number 4 in the fall of 2012 and immediately acclimate to her new surroundings and responsibilities. Her positive impact was remarkable. She needed minimal support to achieve a professional objective, excellence. She performs her professional duties exceptionally well. First, she is accurate. Despite the responsibility, it was done with careful diligence. Attendance, record keeping, budget ordering, template development, letter writing were done well. Her ability to listen to and resolve the many issues of the day, from administration, teachers, nurses, parents, students, were done with understanding, compassion, and professionalism. This in part was due to her excellent communication skills and friendly manner. Susan Savello is also a woman of fine character. She conducts herself with the poise of a confident, experienced secretary. She is collegial, she is collaborative, and her professional demeanor is exemplary. Finally, she is trustworthy. She seeks administrative guidance and approval when circumstances dictate. This administrator has the highest professional regard for Susan Savello and offers her a strong recommendation. Most secretaries were aides before they ever became secretaries. My wife was a secretary for 10 years, an executive assistant. What she has here, there is no one in this district that has. So for Mr. Egan to say that he spoke to administrators and reviewed files and let someone go like this from this district, it's just as bad as what they're trying to do to this guy Spina. We're talking about $26,000 salary. We had 3 secretaries retire this year, okay? But the secretaries who stayed, because everybody's so silly to put things on Facebook, is a Facebook friend of Mrs. Feldman, of Mr. Longo, of Mr. Rivera, of Mr. Frieda, of Mr. Yannuzzi, and of Mr. Longo. Mr. Longo loves her so much he named his bocce ball court after her, okay? I thought Mr. Egan was here to keep nepotism from happening. That's not what he's doing. He's failing at his job. And I will happily give him this information so he can look it over and maybe second guess himself, okay? Because this was wrong. I'm not begging for my wife's job. She is more than capable of finding another one. It's the kids she loved and the kids that loved her and the job she did in that school number 4, which number 4 is the school that everyone forgets about, okay? It's a mess. And nobody cares about the kids in number 4. This district is probably, let's see, number 4 is going to be 85% minority, okay? Mostly Hispanic, poor, free lunch. These kids have nothing, and you take more from them. The greed of this board and how you mismanage your money for these children, I don't know how you sleep at night. That's all I got to say. No more to say.
Please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate.
Vincent Franklin, Tony, 129 Mount Prospect Hill. First elected Mr. Rivera. Mrs. Feldman still on vacation?
Mrs. Feldman is on leave, sir.
On leave. Well, rumors float around town. There's a rumor that she may be leaving and we may be giving her a pay or part of her contract. I'm in opposition to that. Ms. Feldman is not incompetent. She was just led around by a chain around her neck by the wrong person.
Say his name, say his name. Say his name.
Before we give her a send-off and cost us money to whatever payoff she's entitled to, I'm begging you, let her stay and let her do the job for the best interest of the students and the residents of Belleville. Now, this board voted to move the elections to November. A few months ago, the Record did a nice long article lessening disenfranchisement. The headline was several dozen Bergen County towns moved the school board elections, which used to be held this week, to November. They said it would encourage greater voter participation. They were wrong. That's the headlines. If you read the article, it shows you that exactly something I predicted. All that happened is the school elections got lost in the turmoil of all the other elections that were being held in November. Second, can this board answer why auto and wood shop were eliminated?
Because, sir, we felt that the county could provide better services.
Well, I'll tell you something. There's an article by an educator just last month on June 12th, November 14. The headline, "Diploma's fine, but not necessary for growing number of jobs." Now, we keep pushing everybody's got to go to college, you have to go to college, go to college. This is, I get several trade magazines. This is one of my builders magazines. They did a survey of all the contractors and builders. One of the questions, if you could change one thing about remodeling industry, what would it be? What started every day, we need more good installers. There's another one, Professional Modeling magazine. The leading concern is low quality competition and undercut prices, followed by the lack of qualified employees. This is a Window and Door magazine. They did a survey. And here's one of the quotes from here. "One contractor we work with has been passing on jobs he can't do because he can't get enough quality, skilled people to install the product." You've got to start teaching these kids. You know, and there's another article here about this not needing a college diploma. The majority, the article says almost 80% of jobs in America do not require a college education. We're not providing an education to these students. This is Belleville, especially as a blue-collar town. Many of the parents of these children are in trades and they make a good living. And that's a good opportunity. So I ask you to consider bringing back wood shop and auto shop. And then finally, the other thing is, this is written in Friday's paper, Star Ledger, and it's written by the superintendent of the Riverdale Regional School District and Daniel Fishbein of the Ridgewood Public Schools. Their headline, "Too many regulations are overloading New Jersey schools." And it goes on to state, all these mandates, funded and unmandated, are not helping the students of New Jersey. It lists many things. Some of the mandates, such as unfair, place a tremendous burden on local school budgets and by extension taxpayers. And most of this article states, and like I said, it was a Friday Star Ledger, August 8th. You can read it. Most of these regulations that the state pending on are for the benefits of the providers of service, like the ETS, the Educational Testing Services, that contribute big to these politicians, so they keep creating new tests that are meaningless. I've written about this over the last 20 years. Some of these tests take months and years to be analyzed. For example, my son was a junior in high school and they gave the CAT test, the Cognitive Abilities Test. What that was supposed to, I'm sorry, it was a sophomore. What that was supposed to determine what he would need to strengthen him in the next year. Well, my son graduated. My son went to college, and into his third year of college, I continued to ask the Board of Education, where are the results of that test? We never got them. The state couldn't figure out that there was 8 major mistakes on that test, and all those tests, my son one of them, took them, were useless.
Mr. Mangatone, I'm asking you to wrap it up, sir.
So please take these things into consideration. Bring back our trades into Belleville. Our children need it, and it'll be good for our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff Madigan, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Jeff Madigan, 56 Walnut Street. If I may, through the chair, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Zingari on his recent wedding. It was pretty well publicized. That didn't happen. I heard it. You did. Very good. There's a lot of controversy surrounding whether or not your residency will remain in Belleville. That's a big issue. The law clearly states that Once, should you no longer reside in Belleville, you can no longer serve on an elected board, appointed board. It requires a residency requirement. So I was just wondering if you were considering staying.
You know, so anything that's, Mr. Zangari is a resident of Belleville at this time.
He is, and he'll remain one.
I moved to a new residence in Belleville actually 3 months ago.
Congratulations. All right. The question, has the board received the CUSAC report yet? I understand that many of those that were considered this year have already received it. Have we received ours yet? We were certainly in the process by the state.
I haven't seen it, sir.
You haven't seen it? Okay. Let's get back to small business. Has the Technologies Board met and considered broadcasting meetings on the cable station? No, you haven't. You told me that at the last meeting, but then a little later on in the proceedings, you stated that the Technologies Board had met.
Did I say that they had met?
You did.
That technology had met?
Yep, technology met. The answer to
I'd have to check
question.
I'd have to check the notes, but I'm not, you know, I do not. Did you mean? Did I take it?
No, we weren't able to revisit that until school reopens because the TV station requires staff and students usually from the school. It's certainly something we are going to look into in September.
You're going to review it in September. Okay, all right. I'd like to speak to the auto mechanics. When I sat on the advisory council for technology and vocation, it was extremely popular. In fact, you couldn't get in there. The classes, the room was fully utilized. And then it went the way of other things and seemed to get phased out. And the machinery, from what I understand, was sold off. I don't know to whom it was sold and how it went and where the money went. But now we have a rented monthly facility at Bella Vista that costs us $3,200 a month. And we have a machine shop facility that I understood was, I witnessed it downstairs some years ago, that was very capable and used to do the maintenance on our vehicles. And for extra credit and at the cost of materials, oil, filters, parts, repairs to our extensive fleet of vehicles, buses, cars, trucks, lawn mowers, everything you can think of. And it was truly a bargain. And a neighbor of mine, a friend of ours that grew up hanging around on our block when we moved in 1995, eventually became the head mechanic at BMW and makes $85,000 a year. And that was his introduction as a high school student into that world. And he found it fascinating, and he applied himself and made a really wonderful career out of it. And now owns on King Street, I believe, next block over from my street, Walnut. And seems to me that we have a 32-month rental when we have a facility in this building that used to do that, and that we're now paying mechanics when we paid a teacher and who got extra credit from students to perform these tasks and had a board savings that was certainly measurable. And I'm wondering why we continue in a lease if we have the capability of going back to where we were to save money and reduce expenses, when we can return our mechanic shop to this building and do those things, and for the few buses that we park on the remainder of that building, sever that lease and bring it back to the high school. I know we have the property next door and that's fully utilized for parking, but to the degree of parking that we get from Bella Vista, we can return that to the high school. And those few vehicles can be stored here or at other places, and we can get off that lease and return that valuable student-worthy. That was a wonderful opportunity. It was fully utilized, that auto mechanic shop, and get our machinery back. And if this was something that was, supplanted rather quickly, maybe that should be reviewed by the state, and we can possibly return that.
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up, sir.
Okay, and I think I'm going to leave it there tonight, but I would ask that you, at your earliest convenience, make it a priority to consider recording and broadcasting, once again, these proceedings because it is invaluable to the public. And this is a working community who cannot attend these meetings and needs to be apprised of what happens here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Mino, please come to the podium, state your name, your address.
Westville Avenue, Caldwell. I'm the proud president of the Belleville Education Association and a committed member of the Belleville United Coalition. Good evening. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the teachers and the concerned citizens of this community. I accepted this position 1 year ago because I have a vision. A vision that's centered on a quality education for all Belleville students, and one that involves a consolidated work and effort of an entire community. Picture this, an education system where parents, teachers, administrators, board members, and superintendent collaborate in harmony for the purpose of affording our students the best possible education. Imagine classrooms that support our teachers' professional needs and at the same time assist our students in developing and enhancing their skills. Ample supplies, updated technology, textbooks for all students, a library, a functional library in every school building. And maybe even sufficient parking for all the teachers. Okay, maybe that was a joke. I was born in a neighboring town on a street that bears this town's name. So it's no surprise that I ran with and competed against Belleville kids. Back in the mid-'80s, Belleville had a strong football team. Bloomfield, on the other hand, not so good. In fact, we won one game in my 3-year career. But I do remember vividly returning from a demoralizing feat, another demoralizing feat, in the rear of the bus, just scrutinizing and analyzing my play, playing the game over and over and over in my head, just thinking about what I could have done better to help our team win. As I was distracted from the loud, obnoxious horseplay in the front of the bus, it hit me. My teammates did not share the same goals. It then occurred to me that we would always fall short of victory because we weren't a team. Great teams function as one unit. Great teams have one common vision. Great teams have great leadership and great management. Great teams consist of players that work together and support each other. This vision I have of a quality education has always been shared among the teachers and the residents of this town. But it takes an entire team effort to accomplish this goal. A team that consists of all of you, of all of us, and of all of them. It takes a great community to make a change, with the assumption that it works collaboratively, responsibly, selflessly, and with a common vision. We can be that great community. So, for the upcoming year, the teachers and concerned residents of Belleville propose some short-term goals to assist our long-term goal of a quality education for Belleville students. Number 1, put an abrupt end to intimidation in the workplace. that you do. The quarterback must always be able to trust his offensive line. And they must be on the same page. Number 3, involve the stakeholders of this community in all decisions that affect their children and their students. An effective coach reviews the game plan prior to the game and then asks for input from key players. And then lastly, learn from your past mistakes or you will fall victim to repetition. Successful teams break down and study game film so that they can improve their play. Great teams do great things. So I encourage all of you sitting up there, join our team, adopt our goals, share our visions. It's time for a better Belleville.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
cannot afford to drop the ball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. George M. Plotting, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and your affiliation with the program.
Good evening, Georgianne Blanco, 127 Stevens Street. Several weeks ago, I addressed the board and spoke to the monitor and questioned why there was no mention in the budget of the Clarity contract. And basically at the time I was told that it was a line item and that payments were being made. I've now found out that a loan was made in order to make that payment for the Clarity contract. That's why there was no line item. So now we have a line item that we're paying, payments on a loan for our surveillance/security system with interest also that is accruing. So my question is that as of June 2014, your job as the monitor in conjunction with your staff and the auditors in balancing the books. Our books are balanced up until June 2014, correct?
As of June 30th, 2014, the district is in deficit.
It's still in deficit. Okay, so now how are we going to address, because the deficit that we were looking at back then, just 2 months ago, it's gonna spiral out of control in conjunction with the interest payments that we're paying on loans, on line items that are buried in the budget. And this is just one instance. And we also have instances where money was used for one thing, managed for one particular area, and it's used in another. What means or what procedures, what training, what processes are happening that are going to help to eradicate that and also to prevent it from happening in the future? Because there are obviously a lot of best practices that are not being observed.
Can I speak? I've said it before at the Meet the Monitor meeting and other meetings, and I'll just repeat it again. There are two separate budget years. You have the 13-14 budget, which budget year ended June 30th. The district overspent by over $4 million, $4.5 million, and they have basically a deficit of approximately $3.5 million. And if you remember that we had the auditor come in and give his financial report, and those are the basis of those numbers. With respect to the 14-15 school year, working with administration, we had to scale back on staff. The 14-15 budget is balanced. There will be no overspending of the 14-15 school year budget. that still leaves us with the deficit of 3.5 to deal with. The big thing is that 14-15 will not increase that deficit. And just as an aside, in that budget, there's money set aside for books for the kids, supplies for the classroom, and things to make support education. Other expenditures. With the deficit, part of my role is to document how much the deficit is going to be, and then also ensure that the 14-15 budget is balanced and will not expand the deficit. With that, I make an application to the state for additional state aid in the form of a loan to pay off the entire deficit, so that if we're able and successful in doing that, the Belleville School District, that for the 14-15 year will be in balance, and it will definitely, for all practical purposes, will not be a deficit, because it will be paid off. Built into the 14-15 school year will be a line item to repay the loan. So, and the loan in the past has been a 10-year interest-free loan. So, just using round numbers, if the loan was for $4 million, we would have to pay back $400,000 a year for 10 years. The deficit would be paid off, and it would still be sufficient monies in the budget each year to provide the necessities to support education going forward.
How much was spent on the lawsuit against Michael Mignon?
I'm sorry, say again?
How much was spent on the lawsuit against Michael Mignon?
I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Okay, so would that be in the budget? Is that a budgetary item? Was it covered by our legal staff that we have, or was it outsourced as one of the other issues were outsourced and caused an overrun of over $250,000?
In all fairness, because I do not want to give misinformation out, and it hasn't been put on the website yet, and this is alluding to something one of the gentlemen before said about putting dates on the agenda for the next meeting. There will be a meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight, August 25th. And the purpose of that meeting is maybe to do additional personnel items in case additional teachers have to be appointed due to the fact of increasing enrollment. At that meeting, I will have the information for you to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Black.
I'm not finished.
Ms. Black?
No, I have one last.
Like everything else, that's fine.
I have one last question. Well, he had to respond. I did not speak for 5 minutes. My last question, and I don't expect an answer, but it just seems that we're constantly buying out our superintendents. We bought out 4 superintendents over the past 5 years. And when is this going to stop? And is that in the budget?
I would think that we only hired certified teachers. So I couldn't, without looking at every single teacher and everything cert, I couldn't tell you.
Well, I'm under the impression that we do have teachers that are not certified by the state working.
Well, do we have teachers that are going alternate routes? Is that your question?
That's probably close.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm sure that we have teachers in the district that are going alternate route.
Okay, and they're brought back.
And they're in the process of getting their certifications.
How long are they allowed to take to get their certification?
I don't know offhand.
they're allowed 2 years. 2 years. They're allowed 2 years if they're not tenured and they're not certified and they're brought back in their 3rd year. If they don't make their certification, do they get tenure? I'm sorry.
Time towards tenure does not begin to accrue until a person is certified.
Okay, thank you very much. Would we tend to bring a non-certified teacher back before a teacher that is certified but not tenured?
These are questions for the administration staff that's not here. The superintendent would have to answer those questions. I don't have the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to close public participation.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask respectfully for a 2-minute recess. I just need to speak for 1 second.
There's a motion to take a short recess. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Well, we'll take a short recess.